Wonderful, wonderful. Alrighty, so it is 6:30 on the dot. I'm gonna give it like 30 more seconds. And in the spirit of full transparency, it is my fault because I'm unprepared, so we're good. Alrighty, so Suzanne, if you don't mind watching the waiting room for me, I would greatly appreciate it. And I'm gonna go ahead and get us started. So welcome everybody that's joining us either on Zoom or on Facebook. If you're joining us on Facebook, then the next couple of seconds is not gonna be relevant to you, but after that is going to be. As our Zoom participants might recognize right now, you do not have the ability to turn your camera on. And that's so that our panelists can all be shown in the Brady Bunch view, so it's more of a conversation, and because I like it. So like I already said, to those who have to listen to this awful joke again, if you put your Zoom shirt on, you can go ahead and change back into your pajamas, you're good, sit back and relax. You have the ability to message myself, Susanna, and Rita, but other than that, you are here, and I'm so happy to have you here. So we are NAMI Coastal Virginia, and NAMI is the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization dedicated to building better lives for the millions of Americans and their families affected by mental illness. We advocate for access to services, treatment, supports, and research, and we provide free support groups, free classes, social groups, and hope and support for our community. NAMI Coastal Virginia provides a whole ton of stuff, and I know I'm biased, but there's a lot of really cool stuff we have going on. And I'm going to drop a bunch of links in the chat box and in our Facebook comments so you guys can kind of look through that. Specifically, this program is being put on by our youth committee, and our youth committee is always open and accepting with very, very open arms anybody who's interested in volunteering. We have speaking presentations. We have a ton of volunteer opportunities, from anywhere from manning tables to graphic design to answering phones, fundraising, whatever you're into, we're here for it. We also provide all of our programs completely free, and they also go into the schools. So we have a lot of presentations that are school, community, and family and student based that we would love to be able to provide. We have all the materials, the resources, the people. We just open the doors and we'll be there. So if anybody's more interested in that, feel free to contact me. Again, that information will be in the chat box. So mental health issues are common among young people. 50% of lifetime cases of mental health conditions begin by age 14, with 75% emerging by age 24. 1 in 5 teens will experience a mental health issue at some point in their lives. Yet more than half of those experiencing a mental health condition are not getting services or support. Concern about negative perceptions and fear are huge factors in young people not seeking help. Raising awareness by sharing information and starting conversations about mental health are key in reducing these perceptions and stigmas, and increasing the likelihood that young people and everybody will seek mental health services and support when they need them. For this video that I'm about to show you guys, NAMI worked with a filmmaker to develop a short film, which is about 5 minutes, and it features the 10 common warning signs of mental health conditions and 3 young people talking about their own journeys and why it's important to talk about it. And these warning signs were developed by Peter Jensen, a doctor, and published in the Journal of Pediatrics, so they are relevant and real. And then after the video, you get the chance to listen to our incredible panelists talk about their own journeys and answer some of your questions. And this film and following discussion are so important to help end stigma by normalizing and encouraging just saying it out loud. And we understand too that some things may come up that resonate really significantly with you or a loved one. So in that instance, I'm going to put a list of a ton of resources in the chat box for you. Or if you feel so inclined, please reach out to myself, Rita, or Susanna with any questions, comments, concerns, or need for support, and we will be here for you. That aside, it is time to now show you our video. Not our video, that video.
Mental health conditions are more common than you may think. 1 in 5 youth or young adults lives with a mental health condition. Do you know the warning signs? Like feeling sad or withdrawn for more than 2 weeks. Severe mood swings that cause problems in relationships. Intense worries or fears that get in the way of daily activities. sudden overwhelming fear for no reason, or seriously trying to harm or kill oneself, or making plans to do so. Not eating, throwing up, or using laxatives to lose weight. Significant weight loss or weight gain. Severe, out-of-control risk-taking behavior that can cause harm to self or others. Repeated use of drugs or alcohol. Drastic changes in behavior, personality, or sleeping habits. Or extreme difficulty concentrating or staying still. If you see these signs in yourself or a friend, tell a trusted adult. The first step to getting help is to say it out loud.
I like to say it's like a roller coaster that I didn't buy a ticket for.
It's always something that's there, but doesn't really consume or control my life.
I've gotten teased, I've gotten judged.
For me, it's really been about living in spite of having a mental health condition as opposed to living with having a mental health condition, because it's never been something that I really define myself by.
My diagnosis doesn't define me. Like, you know, I have a bunch of diagnoses, but that doesn't mean that I am my diagnosis. I kind of had to learn that.
I started noticing a few things that were a little off, and then I'm really close with my older sister, my half-sister, and she actually was the one who kind of mentioned some things to me, and she was the one who kind of advocated for me when I didn't know how to advocate for myself.
I mean, now I'd say that I was having kind of adrenaline rushes, that I was getting cold sweats, that I was going into panic attacks.
So it's really hard to just tell myself, like, you can't shut down, because if you shut down, like, it's just gonna get worse.
I tried a few different practitioners, different therapists, counselors, psychiatrists, and I really worked to find what worked for me.
And it's just, again, not letting mental illness or people who kind of brought you down win.
I mean, we see it all around us all the time, and I think kids and adolescents are our most vulnerable populations and most innocent. And I remember what it was like, and I don't wish it on my worst enemy.
Eventually, there's going to be a tomorrow that isn't like today.
Well, hope means to me, the only thing it means to me is hold on, pain ends.
Sometime in life, everyone has a great battle to fight. And whatever it be, the best that you can hope for is that you have people that will listen to you and support you. And that you will have the strength to believe in yourself and to fight for yourself, because if you don't fight for yourself, you can't expect anyone else to.
One small crack doesn't mean that you're broken. It means you were put to the test and you didn't break.
It's a lot more prevalent than you think, and it's probably right next to you if you look at the person right next to you, you know.
I feel like people recognize it, but they don't recognize it in like a good way. They kind of recognize it like I don't understand, so I don't understand it, so it must be something bad.
But if you make it about someone's neighbor or someone's classmate, someone's best friend, and they tell their story, then it's really hard to keep it out of your bubble, to pretend that it's not there. So we really need to, I think, personalize it, and just to have as many people that are comfortable talking, talk, because the more it's kind of put at the front of attention and the more people know about it and have an open dialogue, the more change happens.
You know, and I think we just need to have an honest, open conversation and not be afraid to correct people if it's wrong, if it's incorrect, if it's invalid, inaccurate.
I feel like if you sit down and have a heart-to-heart and not just, you know, mental illnesses affects like 1 in every how many people, and like if you actually share your own experiences, not just facts, then I feel like people will be more comfortable talking.
Through telling stories and sharing our experiences, we can relate to each other more than maybe a fact sheet or something more clinical.
You know, and just I think we need to take things more seriously, and if you know, one of your friends says something that's not like them, or that even kind of just puts a weird feeling in your mouth, say something. I mean, if you care about them, you know?
Okay, so that is a great way to kick this off. I always get really caught up in that video just because, and I've seen it a ton of times. And I also realized I told none of you who I am or why you should be emailing me about any of these opportunities that I talked about. So my name is Jessica. I am one of our youth program coordinators here at NAMI Coastal Virginia. Susanna is our youth program coordinator and also currently our acting board president, and she's wonderful. So we are not just, we're also parts of the community, and we have our own lived experiences, as does everybody in NAMI. And that's my favorite part about NAMI is we are truly a community of peers, families, loved ones supporting each other. And I'm so grateful that you guys are all here to engage in this program. It is one of my absolute favorite things that we do. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce one of my absolute favorite people in this world, our moderator, Rita Utz. She has been a volunteer with NAMI Coastal Virginia for about 3.5 years as a connections facilitator and mentor. And she also does these presentations, Say It Out Loud. She's a NAMI rep for community panels, and she staffs tables sometimes. She does it all. She grew up locally here in Western Branch area of Chesapeake and received her Bachelor's of Arts in Classics with a concentration in art history. If anybody needs to know anything cool about art ever or any art happenings, she's your lady. She's a local nonprofit professional in fundraising, mainly in the arts, but also she has a ton of experience with medical organizations, cultural institutions, private schools, and universities. And she volunteers locally in the arts communities and with DEIJ organizations. So without further ado, I'm going to stop rambling and I'm going to hand it over to our incredible panel. And I'm so glad that everybody's here.
Thank you, Jessica, for your introduction and for everything that you do, and also to Susanna behind the scenes, to both of you for having me as your moderator this evening. I'm looking forward to doing it. I've participated in this panel before, but I've not stepped in as moderator, so it'll be a new experience for me. The whole goal of being here, as they touched on in the video, is we, of course, with NAMI, use the data all the time for what we need to accomplish, but it's really in sharing our own experiences and stories that we resonate most with our peers, our friends, our classmates, especially since this is geared towards younger audiences, educators, so many people, right? So that's what we're here doing tonight. And my role as moderator is to kind of simply keep the conversation moving with everyone that's participating. So we'll be receiving questions as we go, and I'll try to incorporate them as I can. I already have some of the ones you've submitted previously. And with that, I would like to move into our first question. So I'm going to kind of call you one by one for the first one. And then from there, we'll kind of take a more natural approach to just what resonates with you as our panelists for responses. So the first thing that we want is just, of course, introductions. So will you tell us a little about yourself and what brings you here today? And I'd love to start with Ariel.
Okay, hi, I'm Ariel. I'm 27 years old. I'm diagnosed with bipolar and anxiety, and I've struggled with it for about 10 years now. Yeah, I went to VCU, dropped out though because of my mental health, and now I'm a full-time artist. So I just paint locally in a studio, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Ariel. And Cory, will you introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Cory, born and raised in Virginia Beach. I was diagnosed with depression in 2014, so it's been a journey for quite a few years now. I am a graduate of ODU where I study psychology, but now I am a personal trainer helping people with their physical health as well as mental health through exercise and fitness.
Thank you, Cory. Melissa, will you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Melissa. I am 21 years old. I'm diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and depression. I'm currently a senior at ODU. I graduate this fall with my degree in psychology. And I am also currently a teacher's assistant for Chesapeake Public Schools.
Thank you, Melissa. And last but certainly not least, Kevin, will you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, hello. My name is Kevin. Born and raised here, Virginia Beach. Uh, was raised in a house hold full of pretty much guys. My dad, my brother, went to Norfolk Academy, then Bayside senior year. Was in the sports. Currently work at Leave the Psychiatry. It's in town center. I manage the practice with two nurse practitioners, psychiatric nurse practitioners, and one clinical psychologist. So it's nice to talk to people on the phone every day who deal with mental health. Other than that, I am also at Virginia Wesleyan. I have 2 semesters left, and I study business, and I'll be graduating. But yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Kevin. And since that's something that's just come up, some of us have experience professionally with the mental health world, but most of us do not. So just keep in mind tonight that you are working with people with lived experiences rather than professionals. But if you do contact folks, either Jessica or Susanna with the organization, or call the office to speak to Jessica or Jen, they can connect you with different resources across the community. So, but today you have lived experiences either as individuals or through relationships. So from there, I'd love to hear from someone, what does mental health mean to you? When you hear that, what does that mean? And does somebody want to go for it?
Well, I had this conversation with someone the other day that mental health is more of your overall health, like your entire mental health, not just like your diagnosis, or, you know, everybody has mental health, whether you're healthy or whether you struggle, you know, everyone's dealing with something. And I think it's important to understand that mental health carries the stigma of certain things. And it's important to think like, oh, wait, like it could just be like, I don't know. I just think it's important to understand the whole picture of it. So yeah.
I'd like to add on to that. So I think I agree. Mental health is not just a diagnosis or what probably most people think. That whole stigma. I would even go as far as to say mental health is everything. Because it basically entails how you feel, how you think, and how you act. And that basically dictates our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. So pretty much how you also interact with other people, that's grouped in with mental health. The decisions you make, what you feel inside. So I don't really see anything else that within life that doesn't have to do with mental health, if that makes sense. But that's my opinion.
To go off of what both of them said, it's a spectrum in a lot of different ways, but it's also like a categorical spectrum. Like when you go to the doctor, like you get your blood pressure taken, or they take your height and your weight, and there's like a bunch of different aspects to it that all sort of fall along a spectrum of healthy. I don't want to say unhealthy, but definitely sort of needs improvement.
And my definition of what is mental health, kind of going off of what they all kind of said, is something that everyone can be affected with. Just like we all have bodies, so we take care of our physical health. We all have minds that we use every day. So mental health is something that we all have to kind of use as a priority. Mental health is how we view ourselves, view others, how we interact, how we perceive daily activities, stressors, things that we just kind of run into on a daily basis, and how we, perceive those and how we react to those. mentally is how I view mental health, is how we think of our situation, our environment, and what we can do best to make ourselves place ourselves in a better situation and environment for us to grow.
Thank you all. And from there, since we've established a sort of broad definition as individuals who have lived experiences of some kind, I'd love to hear what kinds of struggles you may have had within your own experiences and how you might have handled them at that time. Melissa, do you want to take that one first?
Yeah, I can go ahead and go first. So for myself, I've struggled with mental health for almost my entire life. I grew up in a difficult family situation where it was like constant stress. So I became constant stress. And it just sort of snowballed into becoming very depressed and wanting to take my life and actually attempting to take my life on multiple occasions until I was finally taken to emergency care unit where I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, depression, and sort of began my mental health journey and meeting different people. And of course, today it still goes on. Like I still definitely struggle with my anxiety, and I definitely get depressed. So it's just a constant journey for me right now.
Somebody feel inspired to take it next?
Yeah. So I guess my mental health journey started out well, in retrospect, like looking back, really ADHD was something I wasn't diagnosed with it, but it's pretty apparent now, and I am now diagnosed with ADHD officially, but it would always cause me to, be the class clown, cause problems, like interrupt class, really not be able to focus, and didn't take school seriously. And then as I got older, really just so being that I attended Norfolk Academy, a majority of the kids there are Caucasian, and it definitely made me feel a little bit self-conscious. Like I would always wonder, like how do I fit in? I didn't feel like, even though I didn't have a problem making friends due to sports, as I mentioned earlier, that's one of those things that really helped me connect with people. But I would always wonder, how am I perceived, even at a young age? And maybe that had, I never really felt anxious, but then came, anxiety, which led to my addiction. And yeah, you basically using drugs to cope with my anxiety. And from there, it just really was just using drugs to use drugs, and really, I guess, numb certain feelings.
My mental health journey kind of started at an early age. Like I previously mentioned, with a diagnosis in 2014, looking back and talking to, my mom and other friends, it really started in middle school, high school age, just from behaviors. And during that time, mental health had a huge stigma to it. So my behaviors were defined as, depressive symptoms. But at the time I was like, oh, I'm just a shy kid. Like, it's not, like, I didn't want it to label them as depressive or mental health symptoms because this has such a huge negative stigma back as in the childhood. And so I kind of just brushed off, symptoms of, oh, I'm just shy, oh, I'm just X, Y, and Z, and like just let my anxiety and depressive thoughts and symptoms kind of escalate and snowball into my breaking point senior year of college. And even in that point, I was kind of masking the feelings or kind of pushing out the feelings with college culture, socializing and trying to use other different vices to numb the feelings of anxiety, of people pleasing, kind of all those behaviors. I'll use vices, any vice that I could kind of get a hold of to ignore and push the thought of, okay, something is kind of deeper, or something is something's off. It's not just me being a shy introverted person, but there's something more. And like I said, when I hit my breaking point, that was when I reached out for assistance, resources, through therapy, medication, and just kind of changing my behaviors and to be more proactive and prioritizing my happiness and my mental health over people pleasing activities and behaviors, and just saying like, and it's even to this day, just saying like, I need to put myself first and like not be cautious of, aware or anxious of what people think of me, and just do what I like to do, be who I am, and kind of take care of myself rather than taking care of other people. Has been my journey so far.
If I may, I just wanted to interject there, because he touched on a lot of things actually that I felt like I needed to also mention. That's exactly, I relate so much to what he had said. A lot of the stuff that a lot of my actions and my decision making that led me to use drugs was to people please. I was a troublemaker. People, egg me on to keep, being the class clown. That then turned into, playing sports with older kids. I wanted to do right. And I would always find myself in a situation where I could, with a fork in the road, and I would, fall victim. I wouldn't, I guess, to picking the wrong path and going with the the kids that were using drugs, so I could basically be cool or please them. And yeah, and I really just lost sight of who I was. Someone who is in love with sports, and someone who that was my identity, to them becoming, one of the people who, just someone who's known and associated with drugs, and drug use. And, if someone wanted to use drugs, oh, let's go hang out with him. And, I definitely, looking back, just almost feel disgusted that I had that image, and still sometimes have to live that down. But yeah, so I definitely relate a lot with what Cory said there.
Thank you. And Ariel, do you want to wrap us up on this particular question?
Sure, yeah. I think that you guys said like some really good things about like how mental health starts and how it starts at a young age for some people. My journey started really young, and I wasn't diagnosed till I was older. So I struggled with like anxiety, depression, symptoms that I just thought were because I was shy or because I was quiet. And I think that taking advantage of your resources and the people that love you and the people that are around you is one of like speaking and saying it out loud, and just and just kind of getting your own ideas, message, thoughts out there to the people that care about you, to prevent like the worst possible situations or just small things. I think it's really important. So yeah.
Thank you all. And that segues very perfectly into the next question, because across your different conversations, you've mentioned that these things do perpetuate in our lives. We still see pieces of them in our daily lives. Melissa mentioned that specifically. And then also a lot of us mentioned, and I can mention myself, that we remember the diagnosis day, but like that thing that was several years before that probably fell under that too before we realized it. So it kind of takes up space in our lives. So with that, and with also some of the strategies that you have already touched on, that they are strategies to address these things, but not always healthy ones, right? So what are some strategies that you have found to be helpful in taking care of yourself?
My initial strategy or resource was exercising and kind of just taking care of my health in general. I was an active an athlete growing up in my childhood, and once I stopped playing sports. I needed some sort of release to like energy release or just to get those endorphins going. So I switched over to just exercising, working out, walking, just being out, continuing to be that outdoor lifestyle. And when I saw improvement in my mood and energy, I was more like happier, lively, wanted to do more stuff. But also because my anxiety as a child kind of stemmed from social acceptance and from my social environment. Once I started exercising and saw like physical changes, that kind of helped with my self-confidence, self-esteem to be more, eager to or more open to, meeting new people and just kind of putting myself out there and kind of coming out of my comfort zone. And so that was my initial resource that I kind of utilize to reduce any of my depressive symptoms. And then from there, it kind of just stemmed into, reflection, meditation, just taking moments either out of my days or just out of like a month and kind of reflecting on, what were some things that I truly enjoyed, not things that I did for other people, but what were some things that I truly enjoyed that I would want to continue, and what were some behaviors or actions that I kind of engaged in that I either felt negatively afterwards or didn't feel so well. For example, drinking had a negative effect on me the day after, where I was feeling like really hazy. So that's something I kind of reduced my engagement with because it doesn't make me feel good in the long term. So kind of having those moments where I just reflect on my life, my lifestyle choices, the kind of day-to-day activities, and pretty much just making a pros and cons list of behaviors, which ones are good for me, which ones are being bad and negative, having a negative impact, and just having that moment of, okay, I need to engage in these positive behaviors more often because they're making me happier, they're making me feel better, and kind of reduce these negative behaviors because they're making me sluggish, they're making me less energetic, lethargic, and just not kind of helping me or creating that snowball effect to where I find myself bedridden or isolative, and I kind of don't want to go back into those stages. So that is also motivated for me to, engage and be more involved in the positive behavior. So I'll say those two have been my biggest resources coming out of, depressive episodes and stages is, taking care of my physical health, but also having those reflective moments of, what am I doing right now that is going to benefit me or leave me in a positive mood rather than the negative behaviors and vices.
I really liked Cory, your mentioning of like reflecting on different things. That's definitely something that helps me a lot. Like just taking time. I feel better every single time when I go sit outside and I just kind of reflect on different things that happened. I kind of like take time to process through everything that's happened in my life, take time to process through the day, take time to process what I have to do, things that are helping me, things that are not helping me. Something that helps in addition to that is sort of working on planning out my day. I have a lot of things going on, so if I didn't consistently have some sort of organization in my life, I definitely would continue to feel hectic and all over the place and not on top of things. Learning how to say no to like piling on responsibilities has been a big one for me. And I think learning that I don't have to be perfect at things right away. I know that's sort of not necessarily a habit, but just sort of kind of working that mindset into what I'm doing. Because I watched a really good video about habit building the other day, and it talks about to like establish, to get better at something, you need to like first start it. So like it's just establishing the start of it. Like you're not expected to be like absolutely perfect at it right away. So just kind of, I guess, being forgiving, practicing forgiveness for myself is something that's really helpful for me.
Yeah, I definitely agree with like a few things you said, like the forgiveness part, like, and not taking on too much at once, because you have to deal with everything in a positive way. You have to go about it like you really care, and that's the hard part sometimes about mental health is and being happy, is that you have to take into account that maybe before you didn't have the right like intentions or desires, or you have to get your life back on track in a healthy way. And yeah, I think meditation is also really, really good, like yoga or art or some form of creativity. Like it's a really good way to express yourself and kind of get through some of the difficult things in life. So yeah.
So for me, some of the strategies, and again, everything kind of wraps back to sports, but healthy hobbies. So trying to get back into all of that, and really with all the like adrenaline and intensity that came with sports, because I really took it seriously, was very competitive. So I've kind of have like that drive, and um, I always have to kind of be on the move. So staying busy, as much as sometimes I can get overloaded, it actually does more good than bad for me. So I don't, sit around and start having, racing thoughts, and that ends up giving me more anxiety. Um, and then as well as surrounding myself with positive people who are grounded and who uh, will support me, and yeah, basically finding a group of people or person who really, when you're just with them and hanging out, they help take your mind off of anything that's stressful or causes anxiety or really triggers any of those emotions, that those negative emotions.
Thank you all. And I want to highlight there, it's probably evident to everyone already, but one of the things that we focus around in our various NAMI presentations and groups, etc., is that everyone's experience is going to be different. So while one of us is saying, the more I have, the busier I can stay, the more comfortable I am, and someone else is saying, learning how to say no has really done a lot for me. So just sort of honoring our own experiences and what works for us is a huge component within all of our stories. I'd love to add here, someone submitted a personal question that's in line with that when they were registering. And it is about overthinking and getting lost in your own head. That's something that they experience. And they were wondering if you ever dealt with something like that thought or an emotional overwhelm, and how have you been able to sort of stop it and start feeling present? So how do you recenter in that moment?
I think for that, the first kind of trick is realizing you're having racing thoughts. Before I understood mental health and anything about my anxiety condition, which is generalized anxiety disorder, I think I lived in racing thoughts, and it's just the way I was. So a couple good cues are when you feel the physical symptoms of those thoughts, like your heart starts racing, you get sweaty, you start to feel like you have to like go, go, go. Once you kind of recognize however it presents itself in you, that's a good point to be like, okay, this is happening to me. And then it's kind of implementing what calms you down or what distracts you.
Would anyone like to add?
Yeah. So overthinking is definitely something I still have I still have trouble with. Here it's gotten a lot better, especially just going back to as far as like my addiction. My drug of choice obviously was anti-anxiety medications. So especially when I was detoxing off of that and came off of them, it takes you know longer than you think. So just because you're not going through withdrawals, pause, post-acute withdrawals, I would find myself even looking back and saying, "Oh wow, I've actually feeling less anxious and less anxious." In retrospect. But yeah, anyway, during that, like going through pause, um, I would just think about the future. I would think about all these things that I couldn't control, basically. So, and that's the that's the craziest part about it is I would almost have a panic attack over like what am I gonna where am I gonna end up in life instead of just like living life. So I'm kind of like it's just like you are not even present. So really uh uh staying present and being present in the moment and living every day, day to day, and not thinking so far ahead because that doesn't do good at all because who knows what will happen, whether positive, negative. Um, but yeah, mainly even looking into the positive realm that you'll end up being good and all that worry was for nothing. So that is something that I do still struggle with here and there, not nearly as much. Um, since I've been in therapy and I have a support system, and I communicate more. So yeah, that's all I have to add.
And if Ariel or Cory, if you want to add, you're welcome to, or I can move to the next question. So, okay, so I'll keep it.
I pretty much would say Melissa did.
Yep. Very good. Thank you, sir.
I pretty much what Melissa is reiterate.
So from there, we will move into you have the opportunity to give advice to your younger self, knowing what you know now. And also, so what would you say to your younger self, but also what would you say to younger people in the audience this evening?
I'll go first. So I would probably tell my younger self to first off buy Apple stock, Amazon stock, and Bitcoin. No, I'm just messing around. But I would probably say to myself to not be a people pleaser. When you get to so I believe I was raised right. So when it comes time to when you first uh, have to make a decision and there's that gut feeling of this isn't something just doesn't feel right, don't do it. Just don't do it, no matter how like lame, so to speak, or uncool you might come across. And just because everyone else is doing it doesn't mean you need to do it. I know that that's cliche, but it really is real, and I hear about it all the time. um, I would also say to myself to have better insight. Like I said, I didn't have any problems, making friends, some friends with quotes, around it. So have better insight to like who I surrounded myself with, you know, who would be egging me on to get myself in trouble, and who actually, you know, wants best for me, and actually would applaud me when I do things well, like, you know, get good grades on a test, stuff like that. And then really the biggest thing I would say is honesty. Uh, really, honesty has been, you can ask my family. Honesty has probably been one of the biggest things in my life that that has led to a lot of negative things. Just not being able to be honest with myself and be honest with my family, and really share what's going on. I would always attempt to, you know, finagle my way out of situations, and it just dug myself in a deeper and deeper hole. And yeah, that alone has caused a lot of unnecessary pain in my life. Um, so yeah, I would say that that's definitely number one.
Does anyone want to take it from there?
Yeah, sure. I think that to my younger self, I would just say that my experience, like your experiences, are authentic and real, and you need to value, think about what you're going through and hold it to your heart, whatever that means to you, and just understand that, like, there's resources, there's people that you can talk to, therapists, counselors. The resources are out there. You don't have to struggle. You don't have to be like, oh, what do I do? Like, this is the worst thing ever. Or my family doesn't understand, or I don't have friends. Like, you can have people around you to care about you, and you just gotta look for it. So yeah.
I would tell my younger self that it's that it's okay to express yourself. I grew up in a single parent household with no, male role model or figure to kind of determine or learn how a man or male should, express themselves. Like, without that kind of guidance or role model, I withheld all my emotions and all my anxieties and all the sad feelings I felt and depressive symptoms I was kind of experiencing. I held that within until pretty much it imploded to my breaking point, because I didn't know how to express myself or how to go to resources. Like Ariel said, I didn't know how to reach out to therapists or mental health professionals. I just kind of kept it within, because that's that's what I grew up kind of seeing and knew from, was you kind of just hold your emotions in until they kind of, I guess, go away. That wasn't the case. And so I kind of learned the hard way, or the long way, that, you have to express yourself whenever you're in need of help or in need of, someone to talk to, or just express yourself, because that can sometimes be the best way to get out of a rut, of a funk, of an episode, is if you kind of just express yourself and not hold everything in.
And I'm just going to reiterate, going off of both what Ariel and Cory said, to reach out. I would tell myself that reaching out and asking for help does not mean you're a burden. And your existence, your problems, the things you're dealing with are not a burden, and you are valid in the world just like everyone else is.
Thank you all. And with that, I'd like to jump over to, since a lot of this has had to do with not only what we would say to our younger selves, but how that relates to other people and self-disclosure. How have you handled self-disclosure throughout your life? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it actually took me a while to understand what that really meant. You know, at at times, at first I was like, okay, it means like kind of holding my words in, or like years ago I would have thought like, okay, I need to like be careful about what I say or what I feel or act a certain way or be scared of the environment that I am and the people around me. Like these were real thoughts. And I think that valuing your expression and valuing the way you word things and your communication and your relationships is the first step, and like that kind of thing. And yeah, so yeah, that's what I think.
Thank you. And I'm going to add to that also, as you're considering that question, also, how have you overcome difficulties with people not understanding your mental health when you've gone through these self-disclosure scenarios? Kevin, I may have interrupted you. Do you want to jump in?
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say, as far as self-disclosure, so culturally, you know, I was raised in like a culture where you know, you kind of keep things like family problems are kind of kept you know, secret, you know, you always want to like when come across as everything's good, um and like just to throw it out there, my parents are from Iran, so like the culture there is like saving face and not really um uh you know, just straight up saying how it is. Like, you know, my son is dealing with addiction, or uh you know, we're really going through tough times. But you know, as I've gone through the things I've gone through, um it's made me a better person, as as hard as it's been um to go through the journey I've gone through. um I am proud of it, and I have no problem disclosing anything that I've been through, because I know that um it can help someone else. So I do it almost every day when I talk to patients on the phone. And um I would sometimes feel like at the start that I was just rambling, but when really felt like someone would call and they seemed like they were almost a little shy or embarrassed, I would tell them I've been through that. You know, I've had anxiety, like, and I would even describe, like, do you feel like this? And they'd be like, yeah, like I really do feel like that. Like, how do you know? Like, that's incredible. Like, are you a provider? You should really do counseling. I'm like, no, I like business. But yeah, like I think that self-disclosure is definitely important. And I think that uh, you shouldn't shy away from it, and you should own everything that you've gone through, and not feel embarrassed about it.
Melissa, would you like to add?
In terms of self-disclosure, for me, it's not something, kind of going off what Kevin said, like, my family is American, but we're like that kind of working class level where I don't think most of my family members know how to talk about their emotions. I don't think they have the words for it, or like the education or the emotional intelligence to kind of express themselves in that way. It's just not something anyone ever did, ever. It's kind of we kind of had a repress sort of thing. My grandma used to even tell us what happens in the past stays in the past. Like, we're like not allowed to like say, hey, this really hurt me, because that's in the past. So once I kind of went through everything, and I guess when I imagine myself coming out on the other side, I imagine leaving the institution. It's just, I kind of talk about it a lot to different people now. One of my favorite things to do is speak at these events, just because I feel like it's empowering my story. Like, everything that happened to me may not have been very good. Everything I experienced may not have been very good, but at least I'm taking what I'm experiencing and have experienced and using it to help other people. And along the way, sort of talking about it and working out my feelings is helping me out too. So.
When it comes to self-disclosure, it can be challenging at first because the stigma around mental health is that something is broken, or that you are like something not like it's wrong. But many of the panelists have been saying, like, when you self-disclose what your diagnosis or how you're feeling, it is very empowering, and it can be kind of relieving to disclose that information to other people, because you don't know who it can affect and who it can help impact. My childhood, I kind of kept everything to myself, didn't disclose what I was kind of going through. Help with therapy, was able to come out and say what was going on, and self-disclose my diagnosis and what I was going through. And response from that was very powerful and beneficial, because it kind of opened the door, or opened the conversation to other people that I didn't even know were in the same simulation that I was going through. And it can help you connect with other people and show support, and makes people realize, oh, like, this can kind of happen to anyone, and if they're doing so well with it, then maybe I can either seek help, or I can kind of overcome it as well. So when you self-disclose what symptoms or behaviors or feelings that you're kind of going through, it can kind of be empowering or help benefit someone else to overcome their challenges or any hardships that they kind of are going through.
Thank you all. And in the interest of time, we have prepared questions this evening, but I'm going to kind of smash some of them together to kind of touch on them. A lot of what we've talked tonight about, it has to do with, our own experiences, but how they exist within relationships. So do you have particular advice that you might give to an adult or a friend who is trying to help, that friend who's trying to be the ally, or an educator this evening? And you don't have to hit all of them, but if there's specific advice you'd like to offer to anyone, or even in closing, other young adults and youth in the room that are currently experiencing a mental health challenge. Sorry, I know that's a lot. I just wanted to put some things together for us to be able to wrap up.
I would say, for people who have family or friends with mental health disorders or diagnosis, try not to be the problem solver. As I kind of became more vocal about what I was going through, I was less open to disclosing that information to people that I knew were going to try and solve every sad feeling I had, or they always like a solution. Well, you should do this, you should do this. And I just kind of only self-disclosed the people that were just supportive and just let me either vent or just talk about it, and didn't always have like, well, it sounds like you should do this. And like, I don't disclose that to have solutions. I kind of just disclose it just to, give me a chance to either verbally express how I'm feeling internally, or, to connect with someone, or let someone know how I'm feeling and what is the best kind of environment that I should be in to help me grow. So if you have someone that is going through those kind of feelings or symptoms, try not to be the problem solver, and just be a supporter and a listener. And you can help support them by suggesting, like, have you gone to see someone to talk to, or have you checked out NAMI's resources or anything like that? But don't try to be like, well, you should do this and you should do this, unless you are a mental health professional, like you're a therapist, and they come to you for that professional help. But if you're just a family or friend, try not to solve all their problems or kind of brush it off and say, well, it's not like you just do this and you'll be okay. To be there for support and have open ears for that person.
Yeah, he nailed it. Exactly. I was gonna say, as a friend, what I would recommend for someone who has a friend that seems to be struggling and they don't really know how to deal with it. Depending on how close of a friend, I guess, self disclose what I've been through and stuff, and say like, uh, just like Cory said, don't like try to solve it, but maybe say like, hey, uh, make it something that you guys can do together, like NAMI group. Hey, I'm going to this NAMI group. If you want to come, it's awesome. I met a lot of cool people in there. So and just kind of put the ball in their court. And yeah, other than that, I would say that the same thing should go for parents. Um, Parents can't really solve everything, as much as parents probably would just want to, and they really want to control uh, the situation. It's just not going to work. It can sometimes cause resentment, um, and I think that in place of that, parents should, just like a friend, just say, well, I'm here for you. I support you. If you ever, want to talk, I'm here. Um, and go from there, because yeah, these types of things, they don't just get solved. Like, they don't get, yeah, it's not like homework or something. You don't just solve it overnight. You definitely have to work on it. It's becomes a lifestyle to overcome mental health, and yeah, incorporate it, and incorporate all the coping mechanisms and whatnot into your life. Definitely takes some time.
Ariel or Melissa, would you like to add?
Sure. Yeah, so I think that like overcoming feelings and like, for example, like loneliness, like really getting a sense of camaraderie and having those relationships, and you're like, I know I already said this, but having those either social groups or therapists or someone to talk to, like just to communicate and express what you're feeling and thinking, like those can do a lot more for people than you think. So yeah.
Melissa, would you like to add?
I think they have it. I think they covered everything. The only thing I would add is letting people know that you're there to talk. Like, even if like you're not really sure something's going on, just be like, hey, like you seem a little bit off lately. Like, just so that you know, I'm always here to listen. I think that's kind of a good way to open up a conversation, whether or not they take that or not. At least they know you're there for them.
So before I turn it over to Jessica to close the program, I just want to say thank you to all of you. This is a really vulnerable space. So this is how we make things happen, sharing our stories. So thank you. And then my own answer to that question is frequently advocacy means a lot of different things. So advocacy, of course, is grand scale, where we're changing policies, but I think it also exists in our individual relationships. So spending some time looking to how we can support one another, I think is a really true form of advocacy, and that's how I approach those things. So on to you, madam.
Thank you, Rita.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody that came tonight. I am honestly speechless right now because that was just incredible. This is a dream group of people. And I just want to brag on them all because it was all their first time doing this panel. So it just absolutely incredible. I'm so proud that we get to be in the same community as each other. Rita, you did phenomenal. Thank you so much. All of you did great. And I think everybody kind of covered anything I wanted to wrap up on. Nami's whole tagline is "You are not alone." And I think that these people exemplify that your voice matters, you matter, where you're at matters, you being here matters. You're making a difference, everybody, just by being here. So say it out loud. You know, it's so important to share your story, just as these people have touched me tonight. Your story can help somebody else and help feeling not alone, normalizing some things. So thank you all. That's what NAMI Coastal is here for. That's what these people are here for. All of us are in a really great supportive community. And again, everything that NAMI does is completely free and 1000% for you. So if there's some needs that we are not meeting, we want to hear about them. We're here for you. We're in the office from 10 to 4 every single weekday. But I know I can speak for myself and Jen that we check emails before and after that. So please don't hesitate to reach out. We're here for you and your community. And thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you for hosting this panel and for a chance for people to hear how they can seek help or, you know, just hear from other people's perspective.
You got